The story begins around the year 2000 in Korea Gangnam District, Seoul City. The Group D building is located here, and on the top floor is the base of D1. The first team in the world rankings, first division gym for professional players. A professional gamer moves the mouse very quickly while playing a game. They have big and expensive monitors and other expensive things. One of the guys quickly presses buttons during a tense moment. The guy with glasses smiles and says that they met a player with the nickname Dex. A notification appears on the screen, indicating that the game has started. Several players with different roles from the D1 team stand in a fighting stance, and the screen says "Welcome to the turning point." This whole D1 team is standing in front of just one player, who has the nickname Dex written above his head. The guy with glasses from Team D1 smiles and says that he is an arrogant idiot and also selfish. The red-skinned player character screams loudly and says that he will show him why their team is first. He smiles widely and runs very quickly towards this player and swings his sword. Dex stands calmly in place and holds the sword in one hand. Suddenly, he strikes very quickly with his sword and releases his energy. With this one unexpected blow, he cuts off the hand of the red-skinned player, and this sword pierces the ground. This game character screams loudly with anger, and the system notifies that the enemy is defeated. The magician girl was very surprised by what happened and loudly said that it was amazing. Was it a single combo? The guy with two daggers says it's no big deal, he'll cover for him. He begins to spin the dagger very quickly in his hand. He used some kind of skill and his body became covered in purple fire. His body begins to disappear due to this flame that covers his body. Dex stands still calmly and releases energy around him. He felt something and very quickly turned to the side. He puts out his sword and blocks a surprise stealth attack from the D1 guys to daggers. Dex stares at this guy who attacked him. He strikes with his sword, with an explosion of fiery energy, and the system notifies that a double murder has occurred. The man with the mustache gets angry and says that this can't happen. Killed their tank in DB with one blow. The guy standing next to him was more positive and said that he should pull himself together, while Dex is flying towards them. This guy loudly says that they will definitely win. The main thing is not to lose concentration. Dex approaches them very quickly as the man with the mustache holds up his large shield in front of the rest of his team. Dex lands a lot of fast and hard hits on the remaining members of the D1 team. The system voice notifies this command that this is the end. The guy with glasses looks at the monitor screen with great surprise and says that they were simply destroyed. This freak single-handedly destroyed their entire team. Dex stands on the field where Team D1's equipment remains lying and their flag burns and falls to the ground. A guy with glasses looks at his computer screen and asks who he even is. Who the hell is this freak Dex? The person who uses this nickname wonders. Are they wondering who he is? He sits back in his chair, eats chips, and thinks that he is an ordinary person. His name is Young Yun. Nickname is Dan. In addition to this, he also has such nicknames as Solo Player Dan Player Q Wordy 123. In addition to this, he also has a huge number of different nicknames at the moment. His new nickname is Dex. Yun pours crumbs out of a bag of chips and thinks that however this doesn't mean anything to him, his only goal is top one. He pours out the remaining crumbs from the pack and says that it is finished. He smiles, licks the crumbs off his face, and says that it looks like he'll have to go out to the store and buy more because he deserves it. After this battle, his nickname rises to top one in the list of player ranks. Yun types something and thinks that he has just achieved his goal. He typed his message and sends it by pressing a button and thought that it's finally over. The guy with glasses from Team D1 was very surprised when he saw something and asked what it was. He got very angry and hit the table with his fist. He clenched his teeth and his hand trembled because of anger, and he said that this freak was also mocking him. He raises his voice and says loudly that he curses this troll. Dex used a kind emoji and says he can leave now. Yun thinks he can finally quit the game, and Dex retires a day after he appeared. Some time later, two men are driving in a truck with the sign Arcadia, and one of them asks if Dex really quit the game. The driver smiles and says that this damn troll is going to the end. But why did he leave? He watched the D1 stream yesterday. What was there? The other guy asked loudly how he could know that he doesn't read this troll's mind. The driver laughed and apologized and said that he was just joking. The guy says that everything is clear recently. Players one after another are quitting games. The driver agrees with him and says that he is right. It's probably clear why everyone is leaving the era of computer games coming to an end. There were posters all over the city advertising the game Arcadia online. Yi Yun thinks that there are three leading companies: Ain Electronics, Argos Corporation, and Silikov. These companies join forces to secretly create a game, not a computer game, but one that can only be played using a special device called a dreamer. This is the world's first virtual reality experience. The girl who was on the promotional posters of the game asks if they are tired of the boring routine. Do they want a chance at an exciting life entering a world of unlimited possibilities? She smiles kindly and says that they are always waiting for them in Arcadia. In the present, the truck stops at the house, and the man says that they are there. The recipient of the last dreamer lives here. They see a very old building, and one of them says that he doesn't need to spend his money on games. Yu notices these people through the window, and with a wide smile says that it has finally arrived. This is his dream on his computer screen was an account login with the player named Dex. His name is Young Yun, and he turns 20 this year. The system asks if he is sure that he wants to delete the Dex character. After deletion, all character progress will be reset. Yun confirms this and thinks that he is deleting this game to dive into something completely new. He immediately gets into his dreamer and thinks that this will happen in a new world. Immediately after this, he, in the form of a game character, found himself high in the sky, above a large old city. He looks around this place with surprise and says that this is what Arcadia is like. Yun thinks that there are many different games, and in these games, there are countless secrets hidden by the developers, from simple jokes to cheats and tricks that greatly change the gameplay. So-called Easter eggs or hidden chips. Yun smiles and tells Alice that he will leave it to her. He speaks to the Arcadia character, who is in front of him in the game space, and she agrees with him. She says that this is all for the wanderer of the next generation. Yun is thinking about virtual reality. He thinks that by connecting the device directly to the brain, the experience of being in virtual reality is quite believable, so the experience gained in virtual reality is also quite real. It turns out that the words about new opportunities are not just by marketers. Yan finds himself in a building where other people were already there and sees very bright rays of light that come through a large arch. He goes outside and people ask loudly if anyone wants to hunt. They are gathering a team for a quest for 100 slime core stamina potions for sale. He wants to buy iron ore. The price is 5,050 bronze coins per piece. Yun looks around and asks, "What is this?" He walked away into an empty alley nearby. He moves his finger in front of him, and immediately after that the system window appears in front of him. In this system window, his nickname and inventory with the items he has are written. Yun looks at it thoughtfully and thinks that the interface is quite intuitive. In the system window, it is written that he received a task for beginners to kill one slime. He thinks he needs to complete the first quest first. Yun thinks that it is very difficult to move sharply in Arcadia, but to make movement easier, there are different skills such as dash, step back, and swing. He came to the right place where there was one slime and thought that. However, for his omnipotence, nothing is impossible. He tightly grips the sword he holds in his hand. Xion ran very quickly next to this slime and won with one blow of his sword. The system notifies that the task has been completed, and he thinks that he is already starting to get used to this game, and now he wants to start the next quest and complete everything at once. In the system window, it is written that he must read 100 books. 0 out of 100 have been read. Yun was surprised by this and looks at this system window with a task with disappointment and thinks that this game is very bad. Sometime later, in the Edeline City Library, two girls who work in this library are standing at a table, and one of them is reading a book. A girl with pink hair joyfully looks at something and says that she should look. This is a rare example. A girl reading a book asks what she is talking about. A girl with pink hair sees Yi Yun standing at a table with a huge stack of books and reading one of these books. She says that this guy has been reading for several days in a row. The girl closes her book and asks what is so special about reading books if they are in the library. The girl with pink hair was indignant about this and said that she shouldn't be sarcastic. She herself understands everything perfectly well. Because of the assignment, everyone comes here, takes 10 books. Yun doesn't pay attention to them and thinks it's just disgusting. He will conquer this stupid game just on principle. The girl with glasses looks at him and says that she thinks he will soon get tired of this sometime later. Yun apologizes to get the attention of the girl who works at the library. He points to the book in his hand and asks if they have a second volume of this book. The girl with glasses was very surprised by this and asks did he say in the second volume why he needed this. She wonders if he really read this book seriously. Maybe this is some kind of trick. Yun puts the book on the table and says that he was just interested in a couple of places, so he thought that there might be more about it in the second volume. The surprised girl asks if he is interested in this. Yun says that this book is called History of Arcadia Volume 1. Adeline's first trace of the girl working in the library was very surprised when she heard this, and felt something strange. After a while she returned and put a large book on the table. She pushes it forward and says that here is the second volume that he asked for. He must remember to return it later. Yun agrees and thanks her for it. He looks at the cover of this old book that was just brought to him, and thinking about something, he apologizes and asks why the second volume is kept separately. The girl who works in the library smiles and is about to say something, but pauses. She smiles slightly and says that it is because it is a special book that is only given out upon direct request. Yun is about to take this book, which is lying on the table and emitting magic particles. He touches the cover of this book, and his consciousness is clouded because of this. At the same moment, several system windows appeared in front of Alice. In this system windows, it is written Eileen starting town special event discovered. The conditions necessary to unlock the special task have been met. Identifying a player as worthy of special attention, Yun started reading the second volume of the book, which interested him. Once upon a time, a legendary adventurer walked this world and hid the treasure at the bottom of the lake near the starting town of Edelin. There have been rumors about this for a long time, but no one has ever been able to find it. Only one thing is known for sure. This treasure was the first trace of darkness. They say Ezreal hid the treasure at the bottom of a lake near the city of Edelin. Xion reads this and thinks that however no one has found the trace of darkness and the legend gradually faded into oblivion. There is only one lake near this city. It is Iruna. He finds this lake on the map that was drawn in this book. Sometime later in the forest, when the sun had already begun to set, Jiun came to the pier south of the city of Edelin, Lake Iruna. He looks at this lake and thinks that he could not resist checking what is written in the book. Judging by how beautiful and calm it is here, you can't even say that there is any darkness here. He turns his attention to the system window that has appeared next to him. System windows appears in front of him, in which it is written that the conditions necessary to create a special task have been met. The task being created, difficulty B, influences a task rank B+. Main scenario activated, Dex player rating analysis rating 1, a rank B mission in search of a trace of darkness. In one book, he found a mention of the first trace of darkness at the bottom of Lake Iruna. He needs to find out how true the information in the book is by trying to find the trail. Yun looks at this system window and asks if his job rank B+. He practically just entered the game. With his current level, even the most important quests should be no higher than C rank. He smiles and says that it's getting more interesting now. This lake is illuminated by the rays of the setting sun, while a flock of birds flies in the sky nearby. At the very bottom in the middle of the lake lies the petrified body of a demon from whose chest a bright glow emanates. Sometime later, Zun walks in the forest near Iruna Lake and looks around. He looks to the side and says that he doesn't seem to have found anything unusual, but this makes him even more suspicious. He looks at what is next to him for a moment. He looks at the lake and says it looks like it's at the bottom of the lake. Yun rolls up the sleeves of his shirt and says with a smile that he understands. He quickly takes off and runs towards this lake. He jumps very far, holds his breath, and is about to dive. He plunges into the water, leaving splashes behind him, and examines what is there. He is surprised when he notices something and wonders what it is. It's too deep here for a normal lake. He sees only darkness while he looks down and cannot see the bottom. At the same time, in the Korean branch of Arcadia, a man sees on the big screen that the main script has opened and says that he will go crazy because of this. What did he even do to unlock the main story quest in less than a week? This man is Quen Mikan, Executive Director General Manager of the Korean branch of Arcadia. A guy comes up to him and says that according to the task analysis team, one of the players came into contact with a certain object related to the main scenario. Mikan asks, did he say with an object? What did he see? Mikan says that first he needs to report everything to the president of the company. They must ensure that all departments are prepared for unexpected situations. Do they understand this? They agree with him, and several people immediately left, while he remained standing in place. Makan looks at the big screen and says that the main script was opened only 4 days after the launch. While everything has been quiet in the US for 3 months, perhaps the reason is the location of the server in T. At the same time, Zan floats up from the lake and takes a very deep breath. After being underwater for a long time, the system notifies that the diving skill has been improved to rank B. Now he can dive deeper and stay at depth longer. His stamina is increased by 1 point. He sits on the shore of the lake and thinks that he dived to 100 m, but never saw the bottom. He sits for a while and just looks at this lake. He sees the sunset and says it would be better to just give up. He thinks that the game has just opened and the rating has not yet settled, so everyone is trying to get ahead. He doesn't have time to improve his diving skill at such a crucial moment. And more importantly, the Dreamer capsule costs him $920 a month, while Yun thinks that he wanted to try to cover the costs by selling some rare endgame items. But by doing such nonsense, he will definitely not find anything so valuable. He remembers that this is a special task and says that this task can solve all his problems. No other user knows about it. He gets up, looks at the lake, and says that it would be a shame if the reward turns out to be useless, but still he pauses. A big smile appears on his face, and he says that no gamer would miss such an opportunity. He has decided everything and will go to the end. At the same time, in the USA Silicon Valley Silikov head office, chairman's office, a 15-year-old girl, whose name is Jennifer Pohl, the chairman of Silikov, is lying on the bed in her room, and she was very surprised because she was shocked by something. She asks loudly what he says. I mean, someone in Korea discovered the script for the main story. The guy who contacted her via video says that a user from Korea came across a path to a secret class hidden in the starting city. Alice's analysis predicts that the player will soon find the main scenario. Jennifer asks who even thought of hiding something so important in the starting town. The guy smiles and says it wasn't them. They both remember some guy, and he says that that freaky did it. Jennifer smiles very evilly and asks, was it that damn freak? She scatters the things that were on the table and finds her tablet. She very quickly flips through pages with some text to find it. She says loudly that she found it on her tablet. It says Secret Class B of Anarchy. Jennifer says, it's a secret class, the Bard of Anarchy. This class has no leveling or attacking skills. What is this anyway? Is it even possible to play with this class? The guy says that in return, he gets a unique ability. Jennifer heard about the unique ability and says that he should wait a little. She continues to read information about this secret class. She was very surprised and frightened by what she had just read. She says very loudly that this is some kind of madness. 10 days later, Yun swims out of the lake and holds a necklace with a purple stone in his hand. He happily looks at the necklace and says that he found it. The system notifies that the diving skill has been improved to rank, as its endurance has been increased by 1 point. His perception of water is increased by 10 points. Now he can dive very deep. As a reward, he receives a necklace of darkness. This item contains traces of an unknown ancient era. Only by making incredible efforts will he be able to use this item. Yun looks at this and asks if the necklace is some kind of evidence, so should he use it or not? The description is quite threatening. A system window appears in front of him, in which it is written that he wants to use the necklace of darkness. Yun presses the button to confirm it. In the system window it says, if he is sure about this. He was a little embarrassed by this and pressed the confirm button again. A system window appears in front of him, in which it says, if he is sure about this. He continues to press the confirmation button. But system windows continue to appear in front of him, trying to dissuade him from this decision. Yun got very angry about this and said loudly that he already said that he is definitely sure of this. Stop asking him the same thing over and over again. A system window appears in front of him, in which it is written, he has already agreed 10 times, hasn't he? He knows about it. Yan was very surprised by this system window and looked at it in disbelief. The guy Jennifer was discussing, and the guy says that if he's gotten this far, he's probably confident in his desire to use this item. So he stops asking, but then he shouldn't complain because he's already been warned. From now on, he must do his best to create confusion and chaos just like him. Yun looks at this system window in surprise and asks who this is, and he finds himself in an unknown dimension and sees a bright glow in front of him. The system notifies that he has received a secret class. His class has been changed to Bard of Anarchy. The pumping system has been removed. Added a scale for the integrity trait, and the admission system, the character is now completely connected to the user. A new task has been created. Yan looks at this with great surprise and reads what is written in the system windows. In the system window it says that he must kill new players who have not yet received a class. The number of killed newcomers is 0. There are 6 days 32 hours, 55 minutes, and 24 seconds left. Sometime later, in the western steppes of Adeline Newbie Hunting Grounds, Slime Colony number 1. The guy channels his energy into his fist and says with a smile that they should hold on. He released this energy at the moment of impact and defeated the slime with one blow. He caught an object that fell out of the slime and says that something fell out of this monster. He got the slime core. A girl surprised by what had happened approached him and said that it was worth as much as 50 bronze. She was so jealous of him, the guy laughed joyfully and said that he is very lucky. This is why he loves games. He decided that he'll be hitting slimes all weekend and making a fortune from those cannonballs. The girl was confused by what he said and asked what about the trial exam next week. Yun looks at this group of newcomers while hiding behind a tree and wonders if he really wants him to kill these innocent children. After 1 hour the system notifies that the character cannot be deleted. Yun sits in front of his computer monitor and looks at this system window. He was very embarrassed that he could not delete his character. He continues to look at this system window and thinks that it is as if he has stepped on a mine. He received a secret class after seeing a bunch of system warning windows, and immediately after that, he tried to delete the character. But the reason turned out to be simple. Yun returned to the game and looked at the system window. In this window his nickname and the fact that his class is Bard of Anarchy are written no level. He looks at it with a thoughtful expression on his face and says that as he thought there is nothing here. He thinks the level mark has disappeared. Leveling system. This is a gaming classic, and he now lacks such an important part of the game. This means that he will no longer be able to develop as well. Maybe now there is not much difference visible, but soon users will begin to rapidly gain levels. And then the gap between them will only increase. He remembers the words of an unknown guy who said that from now on he should do his best to create confusion and chaos just like him. Yun is very upset about what happened and says that he should have listened to him. His obstinacy ultimately ruined everything. Sometime later, he lies in a clearing and looks at the sky while the wind creates noise next to him. Yun looks at the leaves that fly next to him and says that it's too late to regret, and nothing will change if he lies down and reproaches himself. He raises his hand and says that although this whole idea of no leveling sounds dubious, this is still a secret class. He must have some special feature. After that, he stood up from the ground and carefully examined the status window for clues, and then he found something. He notices that his integrity score is 0. Yun looks at this and wonders, what is integrity? In the system window, it is written that with the help of this indicator, he can increase his influence on the world order and interfere in the course of things when the parameter decreases. Yun looks at this in confusion and asks, what kind of nonsense is this? Another system window appears in front of him, and this greatly surprises him. The system notifies that a new mission has been created. Yun looks at what appeared in front of him with great surprise. In the system window, it says that the mission is to kill newcomers. He must kill new players who have not yet received a class. The number of killed newcomers is 0. There are 6 days 32 hours, 55 minutes, and 24 seconds left. Yun remembered all this and is currently hiding behind a tree and watching the players. He looks at two newcomers who are communicating with each other and thinks that he should kill these newcomers. Is the system trying to force him to play by the rules? He is in great confusion because of this and wonders what he should do. He has made a decision and says that he will try to go with the flow. He channels his energy into the sword he just pulled out and thinks that they shouldn't blame him for it later. He starts running towards the players and says that he is also just a player. Something happened, and one of the players screamed very loudly out of surprise. The guy with long hair smiles and says that he almost succeeded. He almost killed him with one blow. The girl sat next to the guy who was attacked and asked who they were. Several guys stand in front of her, one of whom holds a dagger in his hand and asks if she is interested in who they are. They are the owners of these hunting grounds who allowed them to hunt on their territory. Yun looks at them and wonders who they are. The game only recently opened for beta testing, and they have already taken something for themselves. The girl got very angry and loudly said that this is a hunting ground for beginners. This is no man's land here, you can be anything, and who do they think they should ask permission from? The guy with the dagger leans towards her and says that she really annoys him. A red inscription appeared above his head, which said that he was level 12 with the nickname Crazy Monkey. He asked if they from Seoul. He understood this from their conversation. They must be still school children if they are talking about exams. The guy lying on the ground notices that his nickname is highlighted in red and realizes that this means that he has already killed players. This guy is definitely a killer Crazy Monkey, who says that if he gets through her nickname, he can even find out her address. The girl was surprised by this and was very frightened. He smiles and asks if she understands what he's hinting at. He says with a very angry look on his face that they have to leave here, otherwise they will be finished. The girl starts screaming very loudly and calling for someone to help. She sees a large number of players around her and loudly asks why everyone is just watching and doing nothing. The guy gets up and asks why they do this. It's just a game after all, why can't you just enjoy life? The guys heard him and just looked at him for a while without answering. After a few seconds, they all started laughing very loudly because of what he had just said. This made the guy very angry, and the Crazy Monkey says that he is right. This is a game virtual reality where everything is possible. Otherwise, why are they here? He mocks him and says that the good thing about games is that the rules of the real world do not apply here. It's all about strength here. He understands that, right? He glares at him and says that this is what games are all about. The guy who is with him says that he agrees with him, but suddenly someone attacks him with a sword. Someone cut off this guy's leg, causing him to fall to the ground and scream loudly in pain, which attracted the attention of the other guys. Yun smiles widely and says that he almost beat him with one hit. He runs very quickly next to these few guys and very quickly defeats them all with one blow of his sword. These guys fall to the ground and start coughing up blood. Because of what happened, the nickname Dex changed its color to red. The system notifies that his integrity has increased by 3 points. Yun turns around and looks back with a red nickname above his head. He looks at this system windows and thinks that everything is clear to him. He gets 1 point for each kill. He doesn't know how to apply it later, but earning integrity will be difficult. The 2 players he saved caught his attention by thanking him very loudly for what he had done. They kneel before him and say that he saved them. How can they thank him? Yun looks at them calmly and says that they don't have to thank him because they will be next. It's all because he has a mission. These 2 players were very embarrassed by what he just said. Yun holds his sword behind his back and says with a smile that they shouldn't be too upset with him. He made a friendly expression and said that it was just a game. The guy was very embarrassed by this and thinks that he feels his gaze. It's for real. They really are crazy. He began to scream loudly out of fear, but at that very moment he was defeated with one blow of the sword. Yan also defeated the girl, after which the system notified that his integrity has increased by 2 more points. He turns with a smile on his face and calls for the next one. He smiles very wryly as he looks at the other players and says that now is the turn of the silent observers. He very much frightened all the players who were nearby with his behavior and the question of whether they had any objections. These players began to scream very loudly due to their intense fear of him. They all ran away from him in the other direction. And Gun thinks that from that day on, rumors spread around the Arcadia forum. All the players said the same thing. There's a real psychopath in the game. Sometime later at night, somewhere in the forest, located next to the hunting grounds for beginners, an owl was sitting on a branch of one of the trees, intently watching something from below. In the eyes of this owl was reflected a man who was very quickly running away from someone. The guy runs very quickly through this forest and screams loudly in fear. Tears are streaming down this guy's face, and he is calling for help very loudly. He didn't notice the tree root on his way and tripped over it. He fell with a loud sound, and the system notifies that he received a negative effect because he is injured. His movement speed is reduced. The guy groans due to pain and tries to get to his feet while looking at the system alert. He turns back and looks in horror at something from which he was running away. He notices a pair of burning eyes in the darkness that are looking intently at him. The one who was chasing this guy turned out to be Yun, who was wearing a robe with a hood. The guy looks at him in horror and notices his face with a very evil smile. The guy crawled up to the tree and said that he didn't touch anyone and was just hunting. Why is he trying to kill him? Yun doesn't listen to him and is already swinging his sword. The guy closed his eyes out of fear and asked if he really thinks that the administration will turn a blind eye to his outrages right at the start of the game. He will definitely send reports to this freak. Zun heard this and immediately stopped his attack. He lowered his sword, grinned, and asked what he was saying. He looks at him with a cold gaze and says that in fact they told him to do this. The guy was very surprised by what he said and asked what it meant. Xian did not answer his question and immediately struck with a very strong blow with his sword. The system notifies that he killed a newcomer, and his integrity is increased by 1 point. Yun yawns loudly and says that he is really sleepy. Sometime later he thinks that in Arcadia there is a system of punishing players for dying after death if the user is blocked from accessing the game for a day. This helps players take a break from the game and also increases realism. Someone says very loudly that they should let him in. Why is he being punished? Because some freak killed him. At this time in the Arcadia user technical support office, many workers are sitting at their desks and working. Meng Chan looks at something with a dissatisfied expression on his face and asks what is going on here. The guy who is next to him says that lately they have had a lot of complaints about killing players. Mikan gets very angry about this and asks if he said murder, only this was not enough for him. Well, who does it at this time? Major changes began in user technical support. Yun looks at the system window, which says that he has no level. The class is Bard of Anarchy. Integrity is wanting 25 points strength, and mana 10 points stamina sanity, and accuracy for points agility, 5 points evasion, 3 points luck, 2 points defense, 0 points. Yun looks at this and says that. He yawns again and thinks that killing players is more energy intensive than he expected. Besides, universal hatred is pressing. It's also hard for him morally. I wonder if he will have problems because of this. Since the very launch of the game, he's been walking around the world, killing everyone he meets along the way. The admini. In the system window, it is written that his task is to kill the newcomers. He must kill new players who have not yet received a class. The number of killed newcomers is 125. There are 4 days, 20 hours, 32 minutes, and 1 second left. Yun looks away and says that if anything happens, it's their own fault. His attention is drawn to a pitiful sound that comes from behind him, and it makes him turn around. He sees several sad slimes crawling towards him. These monsters look at him joyfully and make sounds, and the system notifies that he saved the slimes. He earned the sympathy of the slimes. Yan was very surprised by this scream and asked what was going on. Slimes surrounded him on all sides and happily rubbed against him. He looks at one of the slimes who climbed on him, laughs, and says that it seemed to him that he only got enemies. But it seems that these kids don't mind keeping him company. He hears someone's voice in the distance and it attracts his attention. He notices several lights in the forest and someone's voices. Yun stares at this and expresses no emotion. He strokes one of the slimes, apologizes, and says that he would still sit with them, but if he doesn't run away now then someone else might come after him, and he doesn't want problems. Several guys with torches walk through the forest and look for him. One of these guys happens to be the guy that Yun recently killed, and he notices something that attracts his attention. He points to Yun, who quickly runs away from them, and loudly says that he found him. They must run after him faster. They all immediately started running after him. He quickly ran away from them with his hood on his head. He continues to run very quickly and gets to the exit of the forest, where the moon is shining brightly. Xian ran to the cliff and stands in front of a crowd of people with torches, whom he recently killed. The guy with green hair happily says that they have driven him into a corner. He has nowhere to escape from here except to jump down from the cliff. Now he is helpless, and no one will come to his aid. This freak has come to an end. Yun listens to what he says and doesn't respond to it. He had an idea, and because of this he smiled slightly. Standing on the edge of a cliff without a drop of fear, he leaned back and began to fall down. People with torches who were looking for him to take revenge came to the edge of the cliff and watched him fall down from a great height. The guy with green hair was very surprised by this and said that he was crazy. He actually jumped down and looked at Yun, who falls down and says that he is crazy. He smiles slightly as he flies to the ground and exits the game at the same moment. After some time on the official Arcadia channel, someone posted a video with him, which is called Breaking News Gaming Maniac, about all the atrocities of the newcomer killer. In the comments people write, "Is this really a game and not reality? Have such players already appeared? Not much time has passed yet. He playing some sort of serial killer. It's quite interesting. Is he interested in this? He will look at what he says when he himself is killed. He switched to a warrior." A guy with green hair sits in front of his computer monitor and thinks that now is not the time to laugh. He writes on the forum that he is one of the killed newcomers. This happened 2 days ago. After that incident, he started checking the forum. In total, he counted about 700 witnessed murders. This player. Other users write as many as 700 murders. Is it even possible? But he can't handle 10 at once. The guy with green hair writes that he thinks so too. And that is why he proposes to create a fighting force to deal with him. They can private message him if they are interested. Sometime after this, in the main square of the starting city, this guy stands in front of a crowd of other players. He's gathered on a forum and says that to begin with he thanks them all for coming. He says with a very serious expression that he proposes to get down to business right away when the first meeting of the troll cleanup squad is declared open. What attracts players most of all in the virtual world of Arcadia is the freedom to play different roles and create their own stories. And this is not limited to one game. When players from all over the world join forces, by coordinating over the internet, additional content indirectly related to the game appears. And everything happens at the will of the artificial intelligence that controls the world of the game, that is at the will of Alice. The system window says that a large group has been detected. The situation is analyzed in a chain of tasks. Main scenario Act 1 Revival of Forgotten Darkness. Alice clicks on the system window that appears in front of her. The system notifies you that a new job is being created. At the same time, in the Korean branch of Arcadia, a notification about the start of the main quest appeared on the big screen. The scenario development team, which is responsible for game tasks, is looking at this. The guy with glasses got angry because of this and loudly asked to let the task into the game that was not approved by the authorities. The guy standing next to him says that they are looking into the circumstances. The man turns to the rest of his colleagues and asks loudly if they think they are doing their job well. They just launched the game. Why has everything already gone this way? This is the script development team manager Kong Tan. He looks at his colleagues who are lined up and silently looking at him. It was a serious incident. Actually, a randomly generated task does not always cause such a stir. The whole point is in the essence of it. One of the guys says that there is one thing they are sure of. This quest is connected to the first act of the main quest chain. None of the team expected this. Just a couple of days after the creation of the main scenario, the first main task was issued, and beginning the difference is not obvious, but still there. A seed that falls into the soil does not germinate immediately. It would presumably take several months for the scenario to develop enough to have any impact on gameplay. That's what the script team thought. Tae-hoon looked at the screen of his tablet and thinks that only 2 days have passed. The difference is too great to attribute everything to an error in calculations. There must be a reason for this incident. He looks at the video of Yi Yun that was posted on the official Arcadia channel and asks if this is the rookie killer. The guy who stands next to him says that there is just one player running around the hunting grounds of the newcomers who is killing the newcomers. Apparently it is somehow connected with the main scenario. Tae-hoon asks what do they know about this player? Who is he? Where is he from? And what are his motives? The guy says that they wanted to break through it, but someone from the head office for some reason limited their rights, so nothing came of it. Young looks worriedly at the screen of his tablet and wonders if it was from the head office, but why would they cover some player? Maybe it's not so simple with him. He was very surprised when he noticed something that attracted his attention. He saw the number of killed players and out of surprise asked loudly. During this time, he managed to kill 1d25 players. Sometime later, Yun sleeps peacefully in his bed with his dreamer device next to him. He wakes up after a long sleep, before which he spent 2 days in the game. On the official website of Arcadia, there was an announcement about a special event called the Hunt for the Killer. Punishment of a criminal in the world of Arcadia. They must achieve justice and receive a reward. They need to catch a rookie serial killer in the rookie hunting grounds. Yun looks at it and asks, what is it? He looks at this with great surprise and asks, are they hunting him or something? He notices 2,637 comments and is very surprised by this. He looks at it worriedly and says he's in trouble. He doesn't want to quit the game, but maybe he should lay low for a while. Yi Yun looks at the dreamer and says that this thing doesn't cost him at all. He looks at this device for a while he is confused and asks what should he do. After some time, he finally entered the game, sits on a hill and sees several slimes that are far from him. Yun continues to look at it and says that he didn't think the world would create a separate mission to catch him. He looks at the colony of slimes and thinks about something. He gets up and says that this was the easiest place to stumble upon the prodigal newcomers, but he can't help it. He'll have to look for a new place. The slime that is behind him makes a long sound, and this attracts his attention. Yun looks blankly at this slime, who is next to him with a sad expression on his face. Suddenly, he hears someone next to him loudly saying that hunting for this class is very difficult. The other guy smiles and says that he told him that he shouldn't take a magician. The first guy says that he didn't know that it's impossible to kill even a slime for this class. A player with the green nickname Ops notices something that attracts his attention. He sees Yun standing next to the slime and says that they have found their slime. These two players run up to him and loudly tell him that he should not touch this monster because it belongs to them. He shouldn't steal their monster because it's not fair. It would be better if he didn't even touch this monster. He has already wounded this slime and it will die very soon. Yun ignores them and looks down and sees a slime looking at him with a very sad expression. As two players run towards them, he raises his head and looks at these players who are hunting the slime next to him. He confused the two players by slowly walking towards them and putting on his hood. Ops looks at him angrily and asks what is wrong with him. Money. Shake, who is standing behind him, says that he has a feeling that he has already seen this guy somewhere. Yun has put on his hood and is staring at them with a serious expression. Ops was very angry because he did not answer them. He comes up to him, pushes him on the shoulder, and asks loudly, is he deaf or what? Yun continues to stand still, and a sly smile appears on his face. He calls him a murderer very loudly, and because of this, the Ops nickname begins to turn red. This surprised him very much, and he asked what he was doing. Yun fell to the ground pretending to be in great pain, and loudly saying that he was going to die. He was attacked by a maniac. Ops is very confused by this, and asks what he means. He didn't even hit him. Yun says very loudly that this is the rookie killer. He was able to attract the attention of other players who were near him and immediately reacted to it. All these players are staring at the player who is called the killer and thinking only about the reward. AAP says this is not true. He just pushed him to get out of the way. He turns around and says loudly that they should look at him. If anyone looks like a maniac, it's himself. He sees Yun running away with the slime and loudly says that he is running away. Players who want to receive a reward for a special quest run to Ops and loudly say that they will receive a reward for a maniac's quest. How dare a psychopath kill newcomers? They all run towards two innocent players, one of whom you accused of assault. Money Shake thinks he finally remembered that's where he saw that evil look. He remembers the video on the official Arcadia channel and thinks that this was the same newcomer killer. He loudly says that this is a mistake they set up. Players who are chasing a reward for a special quest do not listen to him and loudly tell this killer that he should shut up. After some time, somewhere deep in the forest, Zun sat down on a tree stump while next to him stood a joyful slime, whom he saved, and says that he can barely escape from there. He picks up this joyful slime and says that it's very surprising that he was able to run after him. The slime happily rubs against his face and Yun laughs and says that he is very cute if he is seriously injured. The system notifies that he saved the slime from death. The slime racks sympathy for him, increased to the limit. He receives the title of Friend of the Slimes. Yun holds the slime in his arms and looks at these system alerts with great surprise. He reads all this carefully and says that considering how many slime deaths he was prevented by killing newcomers, the title was well deserved. He thinks that however level 1 slimes alone will not be enough. He needs an ally who will help him break through. The system notifies that if he has accumulated enough integrity points, he earned the favor of the slime race. He can help them with integrity points. Yun looks blankly at these system alerts and asks what does it mean to help a system window appear in front of him, in which the characteristics of the first level slime are written. Endurance 50 points, mana 0 points, attack power 10 points, defense 1 point. His integrity is 125 points. Yun realized something when he looked at it, and a wide smile appeared on his face. He laughs loudly and says that this game is just something, so that's why he needed integrity points. He uses magic on the slime that is next to him. A system window appears in front of him in which it is written that he has accumulated 25 integrity points. Is he sure that he wants to apply integrity points? Once used, these points will disappear forever. Yun smiles when he notices this and agrees to it. Somewhere in space, a large statue of the Bard of Anarchy appears, emitting bright energy. This bright beam of energy hits the place where the slime was located on which Xian used magic. The system notifies you that the slime's characteristics have been changed. All slimes have been upgraded to level 15, and their appearance has changed slightly. The purpose of monsters is to act as an enemy and a target for the players. Not a single RPG can do without them. And in the bestie of each game, there are monsters designed for beginners. Inexperienced players use these monsters to train their combat skills and also become familiar with the mechanics of the game. Such monsters can be called educational, and Arcadia is no except. Slimes play the role of such training monsters here. But what happens if the starting monsters become so strong that beginners don't even have the slightest chance of winning against them? The result will definitely be shown on the official Arcadia channel. On the official Arcadia channel, there are videos like trying to become as strong as possible with level 1 weapons, climbing up a very strange tower. The audience must guess what level he is. The last video was called Slimes to Strong, and this video received 146,000 views. In this video, the author finds himself in the world of a virtual universe. He looks at his hands and says that he can even see the lifelines on his palms. This graphic really surprises him. He looks around the forest around him and hears some sounds next to him. He notices a slime standing in a clearing and says that this monster is so cute, basking here in the sun. The guy takes out his sword, walks towards this slime, and says that he wants to try to kill this monster. The smiley confused this guy by noticing him and looking at him with a joyful expression on his face and making sounds. The slime begins to approach this guy very quickly, which surprised him very much, and he asks what is happening. The monster attacks him, and he loudly says that it must wait a little. He begins to scream in pain and calls for help. The recording is interrupted, and noise appears on the screen. A system window appears in which it is written that he has died as punishment. He will not be able to enter the game for the next 24 hours. Next time he should be more careful. This video received 3,687 comments. Viewers write, did regular slime really defeat him? Is he pretending to be killed? How can you die from one blow? The slimes became too strong. He also died once from them. What does it mean, have slimes gotten stronger? Yun thinks that by spending more than 1,000 integ points, the slimes have reached level 15. They are no longer those harmless, jelly cute creatures. On average, 10,000 new players come to Arcadia every day, which means the total annihilation of newcomers. Sometime later, somewhere in the forest of Arcadia, where in a clearing there is one slime with a kind expression on his face and makes cute sounds. Someone lands a strong blow on an uncomprehending monster, but cannot defeat this monster with one blow. Ops asks what's going on here. What's wrong with these slimes? These monsters take no damage at all. The magician behind him runs away from the slime that is chasing him, screams loudly in fear, and asks why he is dying. This monster only hit him twice. They loudly call for help while Yun stands on a rock next to them, watching what is happening and thinking it is amazing. Before, slimes never attacked anyone first, but now they attack themselves. Why did they become so aggressive? He sees the guy standing wheelie in front of the slime, which is heading towards him. Yun looks at this with a thoughtful expression and wonders if it's all about the increased stats. It turns out that this all happens because of his characteristic of decency. Here's how it can affect the game. He never thought that this class feature would be so profound. His attention is drawn to several people whom he spots in these hunting grounds. He saw several players who were surrounded by slimes and said that they were chasing him. The guy with green hair, who organized a squad to hunt for Yun, screams loudly in fear and says that these monsters should leave him behind. Why are they surrounded by regular slimes? He was very surprised when he noticed a slime that jumped high and flew towards him. From strong surprise, he stood still and could not move or resist this monster in any way. Because of this strong attack of the monster, a large cloud of dust rose, and the guy screamed loud because of the pain. The aggressive slime that attacked him looks very intimidating in the eyes of the other players who were nearby. This monster jumps in the other direction while the guy's body disappears, and the system notifies that the enhanced slime has been killed. The newcomer and the rest of the players stand still and look at this in horror, and the girl begins to cry and says that this monster just killed him with one blow. The remaining players are attacked by a crowd of slimes, and they loudly call for help. After this, several system messages appear in which it is written that the enhanced slime killed the newcomer, and for each kill, he receives 1 integrity point. Yun looks at this with an interested expression and says with a smile that this is amazing. He smiles idly and says that everything turned out even better than he expected. 2 hours later, in the same forest, in the system window with his characteristics, it is written that his integrity is 3,920 for points. Yun smiles as he looks at it and says that he harvested such a good harvest in just 2 hours. It would have taken him 10 times longer to collect such an amount of decency compared to the catch from Aper. He thinks that this is no longer an attempt to complete a task in the system window in front of him. It is written that the task is to kill the newcomers. He must kill new players who have not yet received a class. The number of newcomers killed was 4,949. There are 3 days and 22 hours left. Yun think. Yun is upset about this and says that he knew it wouldn't be that simple. He looks at something from below, thinks about it, and is about to say something. He sees a crowd of slimes standing next to him and says that it seems that this level is quite enough for now. He waves his hand at these monsters and says that he is counting on them as the slimes begin to joyfully jump in place and make joyful sounds. At the same time, in a multi-story building, which is the Korean branch of Arcadia, Myung-chan slams his hands very hard on the table while many people who work here stand in front of him. He looks at them very angrily, gritting his teeth, and says that they must report concerned people immediately, who agree with this and think he is a very scary dare. T-Hun comes forward and sadly says that today, 320 hours after the launch, they discovered that the characteristics of the slimes had been significantly increased. Because of this, the mortality rate of new users has jumped sharply, and the situation has not yet stabilized. Mikan asks if they have any news from the head office. Tun says about this they sent them a lot of messages, but they haven't given them any response yet. Myung-chan says in a diss-side voice that he will have to figure it all out on his own again. How much stronger have these slimes become? Judging by the chaos created, at least they became twice as strong. Tun was very confused when he heard this question and is trying to figure out how to answer this question. He lowered his head, looks down guiltily, and says that the slimes have become 10 times stronger. All their characteristics improved tenfold. Myung-chan was very shocked when he heard this answer. Is that really true? All the workers who stood in front of him are very worried about what is happening and think that he scares them very much. Myung-chan is very surprised when he realizes something and says that they should wait a minute. He jumps up from his chair with an excited look on his face and asks how many health points do the players have initially. Tuin looks down with a very guilty expression on his face and is silent for a few seconds, but gathers his strength and says that the players have exactly 100 health points. Mang-jan was very surprised when he heard this and says that it turns out that the current attack power of slimes. He did not finish his sentence because he was very surprised. Tun understands what he means and agrees and says that now the slimes can kill a level 1 player with just one hit. They were all very tense because of the danger that regular slimes now pose in their game. Mikan says nothing and begins to quickly and decisively walk somewhere. With a very serious expression on his face, he thinks that this is definitely not some kind of mistake or misunderstanding. Miscalculation with such advanced technology is simply impossible. He opens the door in which the Dreamer device stands and thinks that however one cannot turn a blind eye to what is happening. This device opens in front of him and he thinks that if he does not understand what is happening from the outside, then he needs to look at it all with his own eyes. He immediately climbed inside the device and closed the door behind him. He is immersed in the game and system windows appears in front of him, in which it is written that login is being confirmed by 3rd level administrator executive director Kwon Monkin. Access is allowed. With a very serious attitude, he walks through the empty playing space inside to enter the game. He grits his teeth with a very serious expression on his face and tells Alice that he intends to find out what is happening there. He walks towards the girl who is floating in the air, and a faint blue glow emanates around her. She opens her eyes and looks at the executive director, who is walking in her direction. After some time in the hunting grounds of the newcomers, the colony of slimes number 1 Yun stands in the forest, where there is no one but him. Yun thinks that the increase in the number of rookies killed has slowed down newbies, who don't come here anymore. It seems that rumors about the danger of this place have already reached everyone, but this is not the end. The newcomers' hunting grounds have been taken over by level 15 players, and now they are exterminating slimes. For now he and the slimes are working on this issue. He looks down and thinks that it's working out. He most likely won't be able to get any more integrity points. However, it's not all bad. The number of newbies killed continues to rise, just at a slower rate. The count of killed newcomers stopped at 10,000, and the system notifies him about this. The system windows say that this is an incredibly time-consuming achievement. Now he is a famous killer, known to everyone in the vastness of Arcadia, receiving the title of Rookie Killer. The mission reward has been increased. He receives an average reward A chest appears in the system window with the inscription of the average reward that he can accept. Yun was happy when he saw this and asked if he received the award. It's a jackpot. He immediately wants to look at it and presses the button to accept this award. Suddenly, a very bright purple glow appears in front of him, which greatly surprises him and makes him cover his face with his hands from this light. Yun senses a very strong aura and asks, "What is going on here? Was the average reward a trap? Why does everything around me flicker like this?" He's about to have an epileptic seizure because of what's happening. A purple core appears in front of him and emits this very strong dark energy around it. Yun looks at it and says that this thing must be his reward. Maybe it's some kind of egg. Cracks appear in the core that appeared in front of him, and what is happening creates very loud sounds. This core collapses and releases a very strong wave of energy over a large area. The system notifies that he received an average reward. He gets a familiar. A demon appears in front of Xian, holding a core in his hands that emits very strong energy. The demon looks at him with an evil smile and asks who he is. How dare he call in? Yun looks at this demon with a very happy expression and thinks that he has an amazing aura. Who could he even summon? He was very surprised when he noticed something strange and said that he should wait. A system window appears in front of him in which it is written that this is the Lord of Chaos, the Lord of Demons Satan. Yun is surprised when he reads this and asks if the demon Lord Satan has changed his appearance and says with a smile, but it seems that he did not have enough strength for a full-fledged summoning. He appeared in front of him in his young incarnation. However, this is not that important even in this guise. It will not be difficult for him to kill all these winged monsters. He notices that it turned out to be so small that it was the size of the leg of Yun, who was standing in front of him. Satan was very embarrassed by what happened and loudly asked where he ended up. Why is he even in this SK? How did this even happen, and why is he so small? He loudly and angrily calls out to the man who stands in front of him. Yun is confused by this and asks, "What is it?" Satan asks loudly, "Is it he who called him?" Yun looks at him blankly and asks, "Did he say he called?" He doesn't even know how to do that yet. He was given an average reward, after which he appeared he's kind of his familiar. Satan was very embarrassed by what he had just told him. He gets very angry and said that this can't happen. He's not some kind of low-ranking demon. He's actually Satan. This is some kind of nonsense. How could he become a party to the contract without his own consent? He's too important for that. Yun looks at how much he is worried about what happened and wonders what he is even talking about. He looks at him and asks, so it turns out that he's a demon lord. He remembers what Satan looked like when he appeared in front of him. But in his current state, he is very angry and asks why he needs all this. He's too old for all this nonsense. He is very displeased and calls out to the man who stands in front of him and looks at him angrily. He flew up a little and said that since it so happened that a contract was concluded between them and he became his friend, they will have to spend some time together. Yun looks at him calmly and asks if this is true. Satan sat on his head, crossed his legs, and was about to say something. He looks down at him with displeasure and says that they will have to learn to coexist together. June was dissatisfied with his behavior and wondered if the demon lord sat on his head. And how should he react to this? Satan notices something that attracts his attention and looks at it thoughtfully. He looks at him with an interested expression and asks this man, he seems to have some great power, doesn't he? Yun looks at him and asks what he is talking about. What power does he mean? System Windows appears in front of him, in which it is written that he can spend integrity points to unlock the power of a familiar. He must not forget that his familiar is a demon. He must beware of deception and attempts at temptation. Satan, with a very cunning expression on his face, smiles and says that he understands everything, so that's why he was dragged into this contract. If all goes well, he will still be able to fight the angels. Yun asks, what is he saying? He should explain it to him. Normally Satan smiles and asks if he can lend him the power he has. Yun asks what kind of power he is talking about. Now Satan gleefully points at him and says that he means the power that allows him to turn reality upside down. This is exactly the thing he's talking about. Yun understands what he means and asks if this is what he was talking about. Did he mean decency? Satan smiles and says that this is exactly what he needs. A mere mortal couldn't fully use this power anyway, so he just had to give it to him in return. He will reward him generously. Yun imagines mountains of gold and the weapons he can get from it in the system window. It is written that he has 8,975 integrity points. He thinks that the Demon Lord wants to gain his integrity, which means that this characteristic is very valuable. He asks what he can give him in exchange for his decency. Satan smiles very broadly when he thinks he has succeeded in getting him interested. He creates a purple magic circle and says that he will see it now. He summons an item and says that if he gives it everything, he will receive this. What does he think about this? In the system window, it is written that this item is called Nargle Morning. The robe of the leader of the second detachment of demons required level 150 physical defense, 2,500 points magical defense, 1 in 500 points, special skill absorption of energy shield of a vengeful. You wonder if he needs to reach level 150 just to wear this. This is incredible. He heard that even in America no one has ever risen above level 50, and yet the game was launched 2 months earlier. He says he doesn't need it for now. Satan with a calm expression puts the item back and says that he realized that this does not suit him. He did not expect that such a reward would be enough for his master in that case. Yun asks if he is wondering what he wants. He himself doesn't know yet. He had some idea, and he says that he came up with what he wants. He can strengthen monsters, right? Satan did not understand what he meant and asked what kind of monsters he was interested in. Yun shocked him very much by what he said about slimes, and Satan asked him again, with a very strong lack of understanding of what was happening. He starts laughing very loudly, and for a long time, because of what he just heard, and says that he is crazy and funny. He has never received such quests before, and cannot even imagine why he needs it. Yun asks if he can do it or not. Satan points to himself with a self-confident smile and says that he can do absolutely anything. How much is he willing to give him for this? Yun remembers that he has 8,975 integrity points and says with a joyful smile that he can give him everything. Satan was also glad that they managed to agree on smiles because of this. A purple magic circle appeared under them and said that the contract was concluded. Because of what had just happened, clouds thickened in the sky above them, and many purple lightning bolts began to strike the ground. Under these clouds, which appeared due to their conclusion of the contract, a huge monster of the 100th level appeared, which is called the Queen of Slimes. At the same time, one of the players uses the Fire Spear spell and defeats the enhanced slime. The girl holding the unusual staff laughs and says that it was easy. The man with red hair, who stands next to her, says that this bug has a lot of benefits. Now you can get a huge amount of experience from slimes. The magician says that the first level or the 20th, but the slimes still remain slimes. This is a very simple monster with predictable attacks. The man smiles and says that now it's not an option for beginners to level up here, but for them this place is just perfect. The girl also smiles and says that it's very nice to raise levels in such a safe environment. If they seize the opportunity, they might even make it into masked rocker territory. The man asks if she seriously thinks so. If everything continues to go so well, then this is quite possible. Unexpectedly for them, the ground under their feet began to collapse, which greatly surprised them, and they asked what was happening here. Dark energy emerges from cracks in the ground, and a terrifying demonic voice speaks in an unknown language that they must feel the rage generated by countless innocent deaths. Dark energy bursts out from cracks in the ground in large streams, and a voice says that they must fight in the name of all their relatives. These three players look at this energy with very strong surprise. Energy falls on a crowd of slimes, causing their color to change, and a voice says that they must. Many slimes have been enhanced by unknown energy. They are slowly heading towards the three people who were next to them. One man was hiding behind his shield and watching this, while the second man was lying on the ground and looking at these monsters with great surprise. The girl was scared because of what was happening here. The ground begins to shake with very loud sounds, causing the frightened girl to start screaming. And the man with red hair asks why everything is shaking. Is this really an earthquake? He was very shocked by what he had just seen in front of him, and his mouth opened in surprise. He saw a huge number of purple slimes that were in front of them. He covers his head with his hands, closes his eyes, and thinks that they are finished. He screams loudly and calls for help. He continues to keep his eyes closed for some time, but nothing happens to him. He slowly opens his eyes and looks blankly at what is happening around him. He notices a crowd of slimes flying next to him in the same direction and asks what is happening to them. What are they doing? The second man notices something and says they should look at it. They see the same thing as he does. Right, he sees slime gathering together and asks they're all slimes, aren't they? A system window appears simultaneously in front of all players who were in this zone. The magician girl looks at this and asks what kind of notifications are these? In the windows of the system, it is written that slimes love peace and quiet more than anything else in the world. Once upon a time, they roamed green meadows, and their happiness knew no bounds. However, people came and began to mercilessly destroy the defenseless slimes. The slimes endured for a long time, but at one point their patience ran out as they came to the realization that peace and quiet must first be defended. Many slimes put their lives on the halter of a common goal, the creation of a great ruler who would lead an entire race. At the same moment, a huge level 100 slime queen appeared. The queen of slimes, who had just appeared, began to growl very menacingly and loudly. She raises her head and screams very loudly, which creates very strong sound waves because of these sounds and the energy that it emits. The trees around it are thrown back very strongly, and it flies in all directions. This massive attack destroys the forest around it and kills many players who were hit by large trees. The surviving players scream loudly in pain and fear and say that Kellen is dead. His leg was crushed by a tree trunk. Someone must help and free him. They must save him, since he was already dying quite recently. A man with red hair runs away through the trees that lie on the road and under which lie the dead players. He was very shocked by what he saw, and there was very strong horror on his face. He sees in front of him a huge slime queen standing in the forest, and out of horror, he just stood still and looked. Yun stands on a rock and watches what is happening. He is very much shocked by what just happened and asks what he just did. Satan smiles looking at this slime queen and says that he has the strength of the slimes, as he asked him to do. Yun says he has to wait. He asks to strengthen them and not to create a super race of monsters. They both hear a very loud cry of the slime queen, which caused a very strong whine to rise, which reached them at a great distance. Yun tries to resist such a strong whine, and the smug Satan laughs and says that she's very angry. If this monster were even a little stronger, she would be worthy to join the ranks of the Legion of Demons. He laughs again and says that all he had to do was help these slimes a little to awaken their unquenchable thirst for revenge. And the result exceeded all expectations. They were even able to make themselves a queen. Yun looks at him and asks what kind of thirst for revenge can slimes have. Satan looks at him with a smile and asks what was he thinking. He himself knows that people killed poor slimes without remorse. He just helped them realize who is to blame for all their troubles. It all happened with the help of his generously donated decency. Yun looks at him blankly and asks what he means. Satan says that only a tiny part was enough to raise the entire race to a new stage of evolution. He clenches his hand into a fist in which fiery energy appears, and with an evil smile, he says that now this incredible power is in his hands. This is the power of integrity. The players lined up, and one of them loudly said that the slimes were coming. They must be prepared to hold the line. These monsters need to be stopped urgently. If they break through, it will be the end of them all. All these players face off in battle against a multitude of enhanced slimes that are heading their way. In the windows of the system, with the title main scenario, it is written that the Forgotten Darkness is emerging. The mission to hunt for the rookie killer has been removed, and the anger of the slimes appeared. All the players who were in the city of newcomers look at the system windows that appeared in front of them. It says there the task is the birth of Forgotten Darkness. Related quest Wrath of Slimes and Ancient Darkness consumed the slimes, causing them to become angry slimes, possessed by rage, destroy everything connected with the human race. They must stop them to protect the stronghold of humanity. Conditions: protect the city of newcomers, kill the queen of slimes. The surprised players ask if this is the main scenario in which the city of newcomers may be lost. How is this possible? What will happen to them then? This is some kind of absurdity. What kind of game is this? Suddenly, all the people in this city hear a very loud cry of the slime queen, and this greatly surprised them. All players turn in the direction from which they heard this loud scream. They all see a huge slime queen heading towards them and say they are doomed. At the same time, in the former hunting grounds of the newcomers, Satan asks the owner what he will do next. Yun sits on the edge of a cliff and asks what he is talking about. Satan, with a joyful expression on his face, says that everyone is busy saving their own lives. If you quietly sneak into the city and destroy the protective crystal, he will end it all in one moment. He soon thinks that this freak is trying to make him his puppet. He immediately saw through it and said that for now he will watch what is happening from the sidelines. Satan was outraged by this and asked why he needed this. He still hopes that everything is under his control and says that he understands everything. He wants to wait until the last moment to destroy all their hopes. He laughs and says that this is very worthy. That's the real devil here. He starts laughing evilly and says that fun times are coming. Yun looks the other way and decides to just ignore him as many windows begin to appear in front of him, in which it is written that he killed a newcomer and his integrity increases by 1 point. Yun is very surprised when he notices these windows appearing in front of him with great speed. He says that there is still some truth in his words and he still has to make a decision. He will have to choose between players and monsters. He smiles and asks whose side would be more profitable for him to take. At the same time, the Slime Queen slowly heads towards Rookie Town and radiates dark energy around her. She opens her mouth wide and growls very loudly. In the system window, it is written that this is the Queen of Slimes of level 112,000 health points, 3D 500 Mona points, 250 physical defense, 120 points of magical defense, 550 points of physical attack, power skills, ruler's roar, and jump, special features, swarm, consciousness, accelerated regeneration. People from the Korean branch of Arcadia watch it through the screen while they sit at the same table. Mikan looks at what is happening with a very serious expression on his face and thinks about everything that is happening. Tun, who is sitting next to him, stands up sharply and says that the server needs to be shut down urgently. There is clearly something wrong with the system, otherwise how could a level 100 monster appear in a location designed to introduce newcomers to the game? Wang Ji, the lead designer, says he's right. She also doesn't remember them creating such a monster. That is, the designers and developers of the Korean branch are not to blame here. Perhaps this is the intention of the head office. She doesn't even know what to do in such a situation. Tun says that they should urgently report everything to the higher authorities. He has no idea what the developers were thinking, but creating such a monster and introducing it into the game is an abuse of authority. Mikan thinks about everything they say and remains silent. With a thoughtful expression on his face, he remembers what happened earlier and thinks that first the unexpected beginning of the main scenario, then that strange task to catch the killer appeared, and now the anger of the slimes has appeared. He has a guess, but he hopes that this is not so. Mikan asks if they know everything about what their team is striving for and asks what he is talking about so suddenly. Mikan says he means unlimited possibilities, unlimited freedom of action. Could it be that the head office did this? He doubts that they would allow such a thing. All events before this were planned and agreed upon in detail. Jihai asks, what does he mean by this? Mikan holds up one finger and says that this is the work of one single user. The beginning of the main scenario, killing newcomers, affecting the characteristics of slimes, and even the appearance of a boss. He did it all. All the colleagues who were sitting at the same table with him were shocked by what he had just said. They asked loudly if this is possible, but it seems that this is so. This is especially noticeable if you look at all the tasks. In order, Ti-hoon thinks about all the previous events and asks if this means that one player is to blame for everything. Myung-chan says that if his assumptions are correct and what is happening is the result of the users' in-game decisions, then they have no right to interfere. This is the policy of Arcadia. He looks down at something and is about to say something about it. He looks at his information tablet and says that there is nothing they can do even if these decisions have devastating consequences. In the red frame on his tablet, it is written that if the task fails, the city of newcomers will be irretrievably lost. At the same time, in the city of newcomers, engulfed in flames in Arcadia, many players fight against slimes using swords and various magic. One of the warriors strikes very hard with his axe and defeats the slime in front of him with a smile. He looks around and thinks that so far he has only been able to defeat one. If it weren't for the adventurers, the city would have already come to an end. Why are there so many monsters here? He didn't even know that there were so many slimes living in the vastness of Arcadia. Unexpectedly for him, a slime approached him from behind and made a sound that attracted his attention and surprised him. The old man turns around, looks at this slime in horror, and thinks that his end has come. Suddenly a man stood in front of him and blocked the slime's attack with his sword. He turns to the old man and says that this is his chance to retreat. The old man immediately came to his senses and said that he would cover for him. After some time, somewhere between buildings in this city, the wounded old man stands, leaning against the building, exhales, and says that he doesn't think they will follow them here. A man looks out from around the corner of the building and says that he will go forward, but for now he should rest. A blue inscription appears above the old man. Guard of the Baron Guard. He thanks him and says that he saved him from death. He doesn't even know how to thank him for this. The guy shows a thumbs up with a smile and says that he shouldn't thank him because he did what he had to do. The old man made a serious face and is about to say what he is leading to. He looks at the man and asks if he could look him up when this is all over his grandfather's diary records his glory days as a warrior. The system notifies that a hidden task has been detected. He fulfilled all the conditions for obtaining a profession, and he will become a hero from the stories. The man is surprised to notice this system window and thinks that this is a secret mission. He found that very secret profession that he had only heard rumors about. It's just amazing how good it is that he decided to protect this old man. He happily said that he will definitely do so. He is very interested to hear about this glorious warrior. The old man laughed and said that then he will wait for him. The old man raises his head, looks at something, and is about to say something, but pauses. He looks at the angry slime queen and says that first they have to stop this monster. The next 3 days of the quest Wrath of the Slimes passed in this spirit. Almost half of the time allotted for this raid had passed. And throughout the entire period, players inevitably lost to the slimes. But as you know, Korean players are not used to retreating high-level users who found out about what was happening and joined the defense of the city. This helped tip the scales back towards the people. The newcomers also formed a separate detachment and systematically fought back against the slimes. But more importantly, players who managed to kill 1,000 slimes began to receive the title of Slime Destroyer in the system window. It is written that this title increases protection against slimes by 30% and damage against these monsters by 40%. Thanks to this title, players began to gain an even greater advantage in the fight against evil monsters. And then the players had new hope. The rookie squad guy smiles after placing a banner on a mountain of slime corpses and says that they should keep it up. Xion stands on a rock and looks at something crossing his arms in front of him. He looks at the system window, in which it is written that the task is to kill the newcomers. He must kill new players who have not yet received a class. The number of newcomers killed is 300 to 1,576. There is 1 day and 22 hours left. Satan, who flies next to him, smiles and says that this is amazing. There are already 30,000 murders. This is a real carnage. He had never seen such malicious players before. He laughs loudly, hits him on the head with his hand, and says that he is great. Yet Yun feels strange and thinks that Satan himself is praising him for the atrocities he has committed. It is very strange. He notices something that attracts his attention, and with a serious expression on his face thinks that it is not so important now. He looks at the 20,576 integrity points and thinks that he can't believe that he was able to accumulate so many points, killing one at a time. He would SP. Satan hovers in front of his face and asks what he is going to do. Yun asks what he is talking about. Satan says that he must look at the course of events. Unless he intervenes urgently, the people will most likely win. People in the burning city of newcomers have already collected a huge mountain of slime corpses on which they have placed their banner. Yun looks at this city and thinks about everything that is happening with a serious expression on his face. An evil smile appears on his face and he says that it's not interesting. He looks at the system window with his inventory and clicks on the cloak icon. Satan looks at him and asks why he suddenly became silent. Yan has equipped his old and torn cloak and puts on his hood. Satan looks at his cloak in surprise and asks, what is there blood on his clothes? Yun smiles looking down and says that it looks like it's time for him to choose a side. Satan smiles because he begins to say this and looks at him intently. Yun turns to him and says with a smile that from now on they are on the side of the slimes. At the same time, in the building of the Korean branch of Arcadia, Makan stands in the office in front of the woman who is sitting at the desk and says that he is asking her to stop the task related to the slimes. He looks at the sign that says Arcadia's executive director Len Yu Young. He calls this girl boss and asks her to do it again. She turns to him, looks at him, and is silent for a while. At the same time, on a bright day in Arcadia, in a place where a falcon sits on a tree branch, 7 days were allocated for the slim attack. This is at the same time a lot, but also negligible. The city of newcomers instantly turned into a battlefield. But gradually, everything came to an end. Many players stand in this city and calmly communicate with each other. And in the system window, it is written that there are 10 minutes and 40 seconds left until the end of the raid. The guy says that the slimes are gradually starting to subside. The man with the shields, as they have already given up. A week has already passed, and the slimes still haven't broken through. He clenches his hand into a fist with a smile and says that there are only 10 minutes left, and they're almost finished. Exactly at the moment when there were only 10 minutes left, The sky suddenly changed its color to red, and loud sounds appeared, which attracted the attention of the players in the city. They were worried about what was happening and asked what was happening. Why did the sky suddenly turn red? He had a bad feeling. Everyone should come here. Something is wrong here. Yun stands on the head of the Slime Queen and is about to say something with a smile. He holds a sword in his hand and says that it is time to start. The man with the shield says they don't need to panic. The color of the sky doesn't matter. Time is almost up. The slimes won't succeed no matter what they have in mind. He heard loud noises that caught his attention and greatly surprised him. The old man whom he saved looks at something in horror and says that she's approaching. They see a huge slime queen standing near the walls of the city, and her core is emitting very strong energy. Long-term terror of slimes by the human race, a confrontation motivated by their inability to continue to get away with these atrocities. Rage caused by a thirst for revenge forced their mistress to do something. The slime queen opens her mouth wide and lets out a very loud scream that greatly frightened the armed players who were in this city. The monster queen bends down and holds on to the city wall, and the system notifies that the boss monster, the slime queen, has appeared. The time until the end of the raid is 9 minutes and 58 seconds. All the players who defended the city were very shocked by what was happening and watched it silently. The slime queen has made her way through the city wall and is reaching out to the city with her hand. From her hand, which she placed on the ground, many slimes begin to crawl out. The players, frightened by what was happening, immediately threw all their weapons to the ground. They run away from the huge slime queen, scream loudly in fear, and ask if this huge monster really is a slime. The guy with the shield turns to the players who are scared and running away from the monster and says that they must keep in line and not run away. He says loudly that they must go on the attack. They need to attack with everything they have, no matter if it's magic or arrows. What happened to them? It's just a game. Why were they so scared? He heard a loud sound behind him and was very scared because of it. He looks up and sees the huge palm of the slime queen heading towards him. He was very shocked because of this and could not move due to extreme fear. He looks in horror at this huge hand that has almost reached him and asks if the developers really decided that they had a chance against it. The slime queen mercilessly strikes with her hand, and a lot of slime spreads across the ground. But suddenly one of the players begins to use their magic and creates lightning. This player fires a strong beam of lightning and is able to slightly hit the slime queen's head. A guy with long red hair tells everyone very loudly that they should listen to him. All the newcomers were very surprised by this and paid attention to him. This guy stands on the roof with two girls and says that they only need to hold out for 5 minutes. They shouldn't try to kill this boss. They just need to divert her attention away from the crystal. They will win if they prevent her from reaching the protective crystal in the central square. This crystal must be protected at all costs. The honor of the Korean server is at stake. All the newcomers who heard his speech look at each other and nod in agreement with him. They raise their weapons and shout loudly to boost morale. The guy with long red hair says they should go ahead. The crowd of newcomers who stand next to him continue to raise their weapons above their heads and loudly agree with him. The guy says that they should stop worrying about their own lives and just move forward. It doesn't matter that they won't cause damage. They just need to be all there is, and preferably from afar. It's called human swarm tactics. It seems that the main threat is retreating, and that's fine. Many players look at the slime queen standing at the city walls and say that they can do it sometime later when there are 10 seconds left until the end of the raid. The slime queen releases a huge stream of slime onto the street where the players are standing. When there were 9 seconds left before the end of the raid, she felt something and stopped paying attention to weak spells that did not cause damage to her. The next second, she throws a very strong punch with her hand, destroying the wall and sweeping away many players who were standing nearby. She starts to make her way through the wall, and the guy with red hair tells this monster that she should look here. He concentrates strong fiery energy into the blade of his sword and loudly says that he will now destroy this piece of slime. He jumps very high and flies towards the slime queen with his sword, which is engulfed in fire. He was thrown back very strongly due to the protective dome that appeared around the slime queen, and this did not allow him to strike. But there are still 3 seconds left before the end of the raid. So the guy laughs loudly and says that she is late, and that's all over. He looks at this slime queen who is standing in front of him and continues to insult her. There's only 1 second left until the end of this raid. At the same time, in the Korean office of Arcadia, Mu Yang asks, so he wants to demand that the authorities stop the slime raid. Mang Chen bows his head and says that she understood everything correctly. Muang gets up from her desk and says that she already said it was impossible. She looks at him and says that they are not the gods of Arcadia, but only guides to this world. They must come up with countermeasures rather than erase the event itself. This is their role. At the moment the event ended, a guy with long red hair was sitting at the protective crystal and the entire area was empty. He looks at something, laughs, and asks if this is really the end. Suddenly cracks begin to appear on the protective crystal. This greatly surprised the guy who was sitting in the main square. Ji-yoon took advantage of the moment when no one else was in the main square and thrust his sword into the protective crystal. Because of this, the system notifies that the protective crystal has been destroyed, so the city is left without protection. They were unable to protect the newcomer city. Yun pretends that he did it by accident and says that his hand just slipped. The system notifies that the city of newcomers has been wiped off the face of the earth forever. The guy with red hair turns to him and wants to say something, but cannot because he is very offended. He calls him a freak. But in response, Shi-yun defeats him with one blow of his sword. He stands in a city that is on fire and says that he didn't get a single decency point for killing him. Is it because he is not a newbie? But it doesn't matter, because he has enough of these points anyway. The player runs to the main square and says that he cannot believe that the crystal has been destroyed. When did the slimes get to the square? These two guys stop. They were very surprised by who they saw and recognized him. They looked at Gan, who was standing in the place of the protective crystal, and asked if it was not a monster but a player. He heard their conversation and turned to these players. The players see crystal shards falling to the ground around the gun and are surprised to hear that the protective crystal has been destroyed. They were all very shocked by what happened. The players look at it and loudly ask who broke this crystal in the first place. Players dissatisfied with what happened call him crazy and ask why he did it. One of the players is very unhappy with what he did and loudly call him a damn troll. Yun looks at these people with indifference and does not respond to this. All these players took out their weapons and ran towards him and loudly said that they must catch this freak. They should know his nickname. He will devote his whole life to catching him. Yun smiles and asks if they are serious. He is afraid that one life will not be enough. The guy was very surprised by what he said and asked what he meant. In the system window, it is written Act 1, the revival of primeval darkness related quest Wrath of the Slimes failed. The city of newcomers will be wiped off the face of the earth. The core inside the slime queens begins to emit very strong energy that emits a bright light. The body of the huge slime queen exploded, and all this slime began to fall to the ground next to the players, who were surprised by this, and they begin to discuss it. A large amount of mucus begins to rise from the ground. The players were very surprised by this and asked what it was. Something nasty appeared on the ground, and they noticed that this slime is starting to fly up, and they say that it seems to him that the slime is coming back together. He hopes that these are not new slimes. This simply cannot happen. Even during a raid, monsters will not literally appear from underground. The slime begins to collect, and the created slimes begin to make sounds. Suddenly, these slimes are hit by a very strong energy that flies from the sky. Players cover their faces with their hands and look at the monsters that appear next to them, and they see huge slimes, which really surprised these players. The system notifies that the slimes have spent a long time under the yoke of humanity. However, they managed to repel the offender in a fierce battle. The slimes defeated the human race. Many huge slimes open their mouths and make very loud sounds. The system notifies that slimes have occupied lands that previously belonged to people. These territories are now ruled by their queen, who sits on her throne of slime. Yun looks at this queen with surprise and a smile and says that she is a respectable woman. A magic circle has appeared over this city, and all the buildings are covered with a large amount of mucus. The system notifies that the city of newcomers is passing into the possession of slimes. A system window appears in front of all players, warning them that they have entered hunting grounds. With a recommended visit level of 80, they must be careful. One of the players was very surprised when he read this and asked if the recommended level 80 is this anyway. He hears a very loud sound that the slimes make and is very scared because of it. A group of players found themselves surrounded by huge slimes. Yun looks at these players with a smile and says that this is what people mean when they say a stranger among their own. Players begin to run away from huge slimes that are chasing them and screaming loudly in fear. Sometime later, the girl greets everyone and says that with them is the gaming news presenter Makin from the TVG channel. She wishes them a pleasant viewing. The first multiplayer VR game, Arcadia, has already gained popularity. However, due to recent events within the game, players have flooded the forums with complaints, and the whole point is in that very basic scenario, an event that took place in the city of newcomers. Yun lies on the bed and sleeps peacefully while the gaming news discusses what happened. He wakes up, stretches, and yawns loudly. Makin, whose broadcast he left turned on his phone, says that the players could not cope with the defense of the location, so that the city of beginners turned into a high-level dungeon even for her, a gaming reporter, an experienced gamer. This turn of events seems very strange. What do they think about this incident? See you in the next episode with Mick from TVG. Yun turns his attention to his phone as he wipes his head. On the screen of his phone, there are many comments showing that everything really happened like that. I can't even believe that the location just disappeared like that. The developers making fun of the players this way. It's funny. What will new players have to do now? Is it really possible that newcomers will now appear right among the slimes? These freaks must give them the city back. But by the way, he heard that what happened was somehow connected with the killer of newcomers. This is true, but how is it related to this? There are rumors that the protective crystal was broken not by the slimes, but by some player. So everyone thinks it was the rookie killer. This simply cannot be. If this is true, then whoever did it is simply a legend. Yun brushes his teeth as he reads these comments and thinks he's causing chaos. He should probably lay low for a while. There were some losses because of him. One user commented that his quest for a hidden profession disappeared after the end of the raid. He was among the defenders of the city of Newcomb. He wrote to support about this, but has not yet received a response. Yun thinks that he acted solely within the rules of the game. What do they want from him? He has a Bard of Anarchy class, a familiar, who is a demon lord. And then, there was that guy he saw at the beginning. He remembers that this guy said that from now on, he should do his best to create confusion and chaos just like him. Yun tries to think about it all and looks down. He quickly stopped scratching his head and wondered why he should care. In the worst case, he will simply get banned, and he opens the window. After which the sun's rays enter his room and think that now there is something more important. He needs to focus on the present and not worrying about possible consequences. Sometime later, at the university, near which there is a sign, Yun takes his seat next to the other guy and thinks that this university is not the coolest, but he is still glad that school has started. This is student life and everything like that. He pays attention to the guy who is sitting next to him and looking in his direction. His attention is drawn to the video this guy is watching on his phone. In the video this guy is watching, you can see Dex standing on the head of the slime queen. Yun notices his game character and is surprised to realize that it's him in this video. When did the players manage to take it off? He notices that more than 2 million people have watched this video and is very surprised by this. Yun is very embarrassed by this and wonders why people even watch this. They probably make good money from monetization. The guy notices that he leaned very close to him and asks if he wants to watch this video too. Yun was embarrassed by this, apologizes, and says that he unknowingly looked into it. He just found the video interesting. He thinks that it is quite normal that he is interested in this video because he has the main role. The guy extends his hand to him and says with a smile that his name is Limit Y Young. He is pleased to meet him. Perhaps fate itself brought them together so that they can be friends. Zun was surprised by this, but still agreed and also said his name. Y Young says that, by the way, this is a recording from the Arcadia game. He's heard about this game, hasn't he? Very interesting events are happening there now. The city of newcomers was attacked by slimes. Before this, the monsters were weak. But then suddenly they unexpectedly became stronger, and they easily demolished an entire location. Yun pretends to be surprised by this and asks if it's true. He thinks that he doesn't seem particularly interested in his person. He just wants to discuss a game he likes. Yi Young asks if he has heard about the so-called rookie killer. This question greatly surprised Yi Young, who did not expect this. He wonders, did he say rookie killer? Why did he suddenly remember this? Does he really know who he is? Y Young looks at him with a small smile and waits for his answer. At the same time, in the Korean office of Arcadia, Mu Yang looks at what newbie town looks like now on her tablet. She looks at it with a calm expression and thinks that rookie town has really been destroyed. This is another problem on her head. She drinks a drink from her mug and thinks that since the launch of Arcadia, they have been prepared for unexpected situations given the mechanics of the game, but no one expected that everything would be so serious. Wang stretches her back and thinks that at least the event brought public attention to the game. So there are good consequences, but what happened should still be taken as a lesson. She had never seen Executive Director Kwon so confused in her life. He says that besides this, everything that happened was the work of one single user. She would like to look at him. At the same time, he went to the university where Yun studies and wondered if he really knows who he is. Why Young patted him on the shoulder to make him come to his senses and asks what happened to him. Does he really not know about this legend? There's nothing wrong with that. He'll fill him in on all the details. He was lucky to stumble upon an expert like him. Yun is a little embarrassed by this and asks if this is true. Looks like he's really lucky. He wonders, was he just trying to seem smart? Why Young shows him the phone screen where he played the Rookie Killer video and says he should watch it. This is a relatively recent video about this rookie killer he believes is directly related to the raid on the city of newcomers. He smiles widely and says that he must believe him. He will not hear this from anyone else, only from him. Yun is a little worried about what is happening and asks how one player could create so much trouble. He thinks that this guy turned out to be smarter than he thought. There is no way he can let him find out more, otherwise he might get into trouble. He must not find out that he is this rookie killer. Why Young looks at him blankly as he reflects on what is happening and wonders what happened to him. Is he talking too much again? A teacher enters this classroom coughing to attract the attention of the audience and says that apparently everything is already in place. He welcomes all students. He is Professor Kim Tae-hoon, head of the Department of Computer Engineering. He didn't want to burden the orientation lecture, but he came here to say a few important things to potential and current computer engineering students. Students communicate with each other, and one of them asks what he is leading to. Kim Tae-hoon says that they must have heard about virtual reality technology by now. At this time, absolutely everyone is talking about it. Well, right now, there is a revolution happening in the field of computer engineering. It's called Arcadia. This professor's words caught on Why Yun's attention, and he stares at him. Kim Tae-hoon says that all those who have already been there and seen what it is like understand that computer engineering is no longer enough. It is for this reason that after intense discussions, the management decided that the curriculum for computer engineering students should be changed due to its eye. Yun listens to everything the professor says and thinks that he is right. All current technologies seem outdated in comparison with virtual reality. The future lies behind this technology. Kim Tae-hoon says that for this reason, after lengthy discussions, a specific decision was made. Starting this year, the specialty of computer engineering will be replaced by virtual reality engineering. He understands that many will find the change confusing. However, if they do not change to suit the rapidly changing world of technology, they will simply sink. Sometime after this lesson, in the cafeteria, Why Young sits at the table with his tray on the table and says that was wild. He says with a worried expression that the name of an entire specialty was changed very unexpectedly. Yun sits across from him and wonders why they are having lunch together. Why Young was inspired and says that in addition to this, the professor mentioned Arcadia right in the lecture. Isn't that cool? Yun is a little tense by what he says, but still agrees with him. He thinks this guy is crazy about Arcadia. Yi Young unexpectedly asks him why he doesn't play. From such an unexpected question, Yi Young dropped his food, which he was holding with chopsticks. He's a little embarrassed by this and says that he would like to, but Dreamer is too expensive, and besides he doesn't play that much. He panics greatly, although he tries not to show it. And thinks that he cannot give himself away. He needs to carefully change the subject. He looks at him and asks H. Why Young starts laughing at himself and says that of course it is. He looks up smugly and says that what's more, his character is already quite high level. Young pretends to be interested in this and asks if this is true. He thinks that he seems to have succeeded. Why Young says that he will have to tell him if things start playing like this. He will help him with the pump. Recently it has become more difficult to start because newcomers now appear in a completely random place. Yun says that of course if he starts playing, he will definitely tell him about it. He laughed quietly and thinks that he is very kind to him. This guy is a little weird. After some time in Arcadia, a slightly annoyed Satan asks why he was gone for so long. How dare a mere mortal make him wait? Shang Yans calls him Tan and says that because of the rap, he didn't sleep for several days, so he had to make up for lost sleep time. Satan sighed displeased and says that he is very weak. That's why he doesn't like to enter into contracts with people. Yun looks at how angry he is and thinks that it looks like he was bored enough without him. Suddenly in this forest, someone next to them screams loudly. They turn in the direction where the scream came from and look at it. The slime queen ran up to Zun and immediately tried to hug him, which surprised him very much, while she hugs him with a joyful expression. A large crowd of slimes came running behind her and were happy to see him. All these slimes knocked him to the ground and continued to jump on top of him. Yun is hugged by the slime queen with a joyful expression on his face, and slimes surround him on all sides as he says he can't breathe. Satan was pinned down by one of the joy slimes, to which he tells him that he must get off of him immediately. It's disgusting, he's all sticky now. After that, the slimes stood next to each other and looked at them for a while. The queen of slimes bows to them, and the system notifies that she expresses her gratitude to them, that the slime race will never forget the lengths they went to protect them. He is now the eternal savior of the slime race. Yan, slightly embarrassed by this, waves his hand at them and says that he didn't do anything like that. The system notifies you that there has been a change in rank from slime friend to slime savior. As a reward, he receives a crown of slimes. Immediately after that, this object appeared above Xian's head, and it surprised him a little. The system notifies that his integrity has been increased by 2,413 points. The task of anger of the slimes was completed. Yun looks in surprise at the system windows that appeared in front of him and says that he has received a surprising number of awards. The system notifies that he helped the slimes overcome the crisis and achieve prosperity. They will forever remember his kindness. From now on, he is their savior. Recognition by the slime race. Water agility increased by 10 points. Intelligence and physical defense increased by 5 points. Yun looks at this with a smile and says that he only recently started playing and has already received so many titles, but it would be better if he didn't show it to anyone. Satan gets his attention by calling him, causing him to turn around and ask Tan what he wanted. He asks with a dissatisfied expression on his face. Maybe they can leave from here already. All this purple is already making his eyes dazzle. Many slimes immediately approached Xian and jumped on him with joyful expressions, causing him to tell Tan that he agreed with him. They are about to leave, and the queen of slimes waves her hand after them and makes sounds with a joyful expression on her face. She stands with the rest of the slimes and sees them off, being near the captured city of newcomers. Yi turns to the side and with a determined expression on his face says that it is time for them to move on to the next goal. At the same time, in a beautiful and big city, which is located in a mountainous area, from somewhere behind the mountains, very loud sounds are heard that reach this city. Somewhere in a dark space, there's an angel from whose body a very strong and bright energy emanates. The city of newcomers was destroyed as a result of a raid by slimes. However, users found a replacement unexpectedly quickly. An information topic appeared on the forum with recommendations on hunting places for beginners. About 10 km from the city of newcomers is the barony of Michael. The monsters nearby are not too strong and the NPC sell good items. In the comments, people write that he was there even before. This location is closest to the former city of newcomers. It's not surprising that everyone moved there. It's a cool, good place for a new city for newbies. No one wants to hunt together. Rumors spread very quickly, and soon users from all over Arcadia began to flock to the lands of M. Everyone around already knows about it. Some time later, Yun comes to this place, and together with the rest of the players goes inside this city. One of the guards notices him and loudly says that he must stop. What's his name? Yun hides Satan behind his clothes and says his name is Dex. The guard looks at him and asks if he also came from the city of newcomers. Yun agrees and says that it is.